Kwazwai mthwakazo muhle Zimbabwe muhle muri Zimbabwe lingali chona njani izulu kanti abathi nothenda zikhurusa kwazwai. Welcome to anyone and everyone that is tuned into LiveTalk-The Connection muri Zimbabwe. We're coming to you from my apartment in Washington DC muri Zimbabwe. This is LiveTalk-The Connection, Studio 7's very own youth program that targets tackling anything and everything youth related. Muri Zimbabwe, if you're tuning in right now, you're tuned into LiveTalk-The Connection, and we're coming to you from my apartment on Tuesday the 23rd of November 2021. Muri Zimbabwe, mthwakazo muhle. I'm your host, Mike Hove. Once again, muri Zimbabwe sithanda ukubonga wonke umuntu ongenayo kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo. If you're tuned in right now, you're tuned into Live Talk, the Connection, Studio 7's very own youth program that targets tackling anything and everything youth related. We're coming to you from my apartment in Washington DC. Muri Zimbabwe nasi mchirongwa chedu chebechidiki namhlanje kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo. We continue the discussion on the COVID-19 pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, responsible for taking millions of lives across the globe, thousands of lives in Zimbabwe. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on Zimbabwe's coronavirus vaccination program. But the conversation is not just going to be ending there, Muri Zimbabwe. We're also going to be discussing the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence campaign, which is commemorated annually on starting on the 25th of November through to the 10th of December. Unfortunately, Muri Zimbabwe, Nasim Chirongwachedu, our program is pre-recorded. What this means is you will not be able to join in live via telephone as usual. However, as we speak, we're broadcasting on our 3 Facebook pages, that being VOA Shona, VOA Ndebele, Ganyelagu, VOA Studio 7. For our YouTube fanatics, as usual, as I mentioned, Muri Zimbabwe, we're broadcasting on YouTube as we speak. Our official page is VOA Zimbabwe, so feel free to check the page out. We're also broadcasting on our 3 web pages, that being www.voashona.com, www.voandebele.com, www.voazimbabwe.com. So for all our web viewers, website, for all our Facebook viewers, Facebook, and for all our YouTube fanatics, YouTube. To press the share button so that we watch the program in our numbers. And of course, for everybody that is streaming right now with me, to press the like button. Like I was Muri Zimbabwe like so. Also feel free to write your comments in the comment section so that we get to see your feedback. Now, as usual, Muri Zimbabwe, we like to kickstart the program with an update on COVID-19. So let us head over to an infomercial that was recently produced by the Ministry of Health and Childcare that focuses on coronavirus in Zimbabwe. Once again, to watch the full clip, head over to the Ministry of Health and Childcare's Twitter page. This infomercial is also available on their Facebook page and their YouTube page. Let's take a look.
Zimbabwe aims to achieve 60% herd immunity from COVID-19 with the vaccination of 10 million people by the end of the year 2021. The global goal of fully vaccinating 10% of every country's population by the 30th of September 2021 was set in May by the World Health Assembly, and almost 90% of the high-income countries have met this target. 9 African countries, including Zimbabwe, South Africa, Morocco, and Tunisia, had reached the 10% goal at the beginning of September 2021. You may be wondering, what is herd immunity? Herd immunity occurs when a large portion of a population becomes immune to a disease, making the spread of the disease from person to person less. As a result, the entire population becomes protected, not just those who are immune. We know that COVID-19 spreads through close contact, making crowded areas potentially deadly. But when some members of the crowd have immunity, that changes. COVID-19 vaccines train our immune system to resist the COVID-19 virus and reduce the chances of it spreading. As more people gain immunity by vaccination, the number of infected people diminishes. When enough people have been vaccinated, it is easier for the government to open up all aspects of the economy. Stopping the spread of COVID-19 requires us as a nation to use all the tools available. Protect yourself and others. Vaccines are available at your nearest health facility. So, let's roll up our sleeves and get vaccinated today. Remember, no one is safe until everyone is safe. This message has been brought to you by the Ministry of Health and Childcare Zimbabwe, with generous support from Chicken Inn, Revive, and Bakers Inn.
Well, Maria Zimbabwe, you're hearing there from the Ministry of Health and Childcare, giving us an update on how far Zimbabwe is from achieving a herd immunity. So that's some of the information that we're receiving live straight from the Ministry of Health and Childcare. Of course, partnering up with different organizations to give us that amazing message. That broadcast message is also available, like I mentioned earlier, on their Twitter page, their Facebook page, their YouTube page, and it is run on several different radio and television platforms in Zimbabwe. But now, whilst on the discussion of coronavirus in Zimbabwe, Muria Zimbabwe, my colleague Jonga Kandemiri recently reached out to the Director of Information under the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, Mr. Taungana Ndoro, whereby they focus about on the current state of schools in Zimbabwe. Of course, for those that seem to have forgotten, not so long ago, schools were one of the prime areas whereby the coronavirus pandemic was spreading. Let us head over to a conversation that Mr. Kandemire had with Mr. Ndoro pertaining to the current stats of coronavirus in Zimbabwean schools.
Chinonyanya kutifadza ndechekuti macases edenda reCovid adzikira zvakanyanyisa muzvikoro medu. Saka nyaya yedenda iyi tagona kuidzosera nekuimaneja muzvikoro medu. Saka haisiri nyaya ingambonyanya kutinetsa muzvikoro medu. Saka zviri kutotidadisa kuti takakwanisa kuita kuti vana vakawanda vachengetedzeke muupenyu hwavo.
Tiri kunzwawo kuti vanovheneka COVID-19 vari kupinda muzvikoro vachivheneka vana pasina chibvumirano kana kuti mvumo inobva kuvabereki. Mungatidzawo zvakamira sei panyaya iyoyo?
Aiwa, kuvhenekwa kwevana isusu hedu tiri bazi rePrivalent Secondary Education, asi izvo zvinoitwa nebazi rezveutano, asi kune inonzi COVID National Policy yekuti haibvunzi kuti tingada kukubvunza here mewakademire kuti tindotarisa kuti ava vane COVID here. Kana vaine COVID, pane mapolicies nemaprotocols anotoshandiswa nationally ekuti mwana neCovid anoitwa sei. Saka zvirevo kuti kana mwana ari pachikoro haachaitwe maprotocols iwayo eCovid. Saka mukaona vezveutano vachipinda pachikoro ipapo vachivheneka vana COVID, havana vanofanirwa kubvunza nekuti inational policy yeCovid.
Tinoona kuti vana vechikoro vakawanda vanoenda kuchikoro vachidzoka kudzimba uko vanosvikosangana nevanhu vangadai vane utachiwana hweCovid-19, tichitarisawo kuti kufamba kwevanhu kwakuwanda munguva ino yekutarisana nezero rekisimusi. Matanho apa ari kutorwawo nebazi renyu ekudzivirira kuti vana vange vasinganyanyotapurirwa denda iri?
Isusu tine vana vakawanda, vana vakatowanda vari muchikoro medu, ndo vatinoti maday scholars. Vanoenda kuchikoro zuva nezuva vachibva mudzimba dzavo. Saka vagara vachitongofamba famba. Vatori vashoma ndo vamunoti maborders aya vanogara pachikoro, vatori vashoma. Saka vanotofamba vakatowanda, uye vari kuramba vachifamba nyangwe taakuenda zvedu mukisimusi umu, vakagara vachingofamba, asi denda reCovid vakwanisa kuridzivisa.
Well, Maria Zimbabwe, you're hearing there from Utaungana Ndoro, the director, information director under the Ministry of Health and, under the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. Mr. Ndoro there was speaking to my colleague Jonga Kandemiri as they were focusing on the current stats of coronavirus in Zimbabwean schools. As highlighted by Mr. Ndoro there, government seems to be very satisfied with the current state within Zimbabwean schools. Coronavirus cases seem to have stabilized, as mentioned by Mr. Ndoro. But whilst on the discussion of COVID-19 and, of course, stabilizing in Zimbabwe and the vaccination program, last week Zimbabwe kickstarted the program whereby now Zimbabwean youth aged 16 and above can now receive the COVID-19 jab. Our correspondent Anastasia Ndlovu recently reached out to the Bulawayo City Council's Director of Health, Dr. Edwin Zvanda, to hear his thoughts on the COVID-19 vaccination program and, of course, how much or whether or not extending the program to Zimbabwean youth aged 16 and above would help towards Zimbabwe achieving herd immunity. Let's hear what Dr. Zvanda had to say.
We started going to schools where the bulk of the 16 and 17-year-olds are found, and we are vaccinating them with the assistance of some partners, Organization for Public Health Initiatives and Development, commonly known as OFID, supporting some of the activities there. But we also have our own teams as usual, and we think we are making progress. We may be able to give you daily updates if they are possible, but using the people that I have referred to, there is communication pillar. They also work with our corporate communications necessary to actually disseminate any information to the community. So I think this is, in brief, what we are doing with vaccinations in the city and COVID response. The rapid response team is still there and active, but the numbers were scaled down. One time we had 10 of them teams, but I think now we're running around with between 2 and 3.
Honguka Hamane Shamwari, you were hearing there from Dr. Edwin Zvanda of the Bulawayo City Council. Wachitsanangura kamaundro avo ubechasisa ngempela umbono wakhe ngohlelo lokuhlaba abantu abasakhulayo iJackson elivikela iCoronavirus. Emazvinzwira kamhuri yeZimbabwe avangari Dr. Edwin Zvanda vanga vachitsanangura maundro avo nezvechirongwa ichi vachiti aiwa chirongwa ichi chichabatsira zvikurusa mukuona kuti chirwere cheCoronavirus kana kuti denda reCoronavirus rinombomira mukupararira munyika. So imi muri kuchionawo sei chirongwa ichi vechidiki 16 and above nawo vapiwawo kamukana vave kubayiwa nhomba inodzivirira COVID-19. Munoona zvichibatsira here mukudzivirira kupararira kwedenda reCovid-19? Ngenani kuhlelo zulokanda babhalani imibono yenu kukhasi lethu ele-VOA Ndebele lisisho phela ukuthi libona ngani lolu hlelo lulakho ukusiza na nxa sesikhangela udaba lokumisa ukumemetheka kwe-coronavirus elizweni. Now musakangano muri Zimbabwe nyora imaondo renyu papage redu refacebook pa-VOA Shona Triple zvakare pa-VOA Ndebele pamwe nepa VOA Studio 7. Now, to also hear more in terms of the effectivity of the COVID-19 vaccination program in Zimbabwe, and of course, whether or not it would help that young people aged 16 and above can now receive the COVID-19 jab. As usual, we reached out to our medical expert. He's a friend of the show, Dr. Tinotendas Memeza, to hear his thoughts on Zimbabwe's vaccination program and whether or not this would help. Let's hear what Dr. Tinotenda had to say as I reached out to him earlier on today.
It seems now we are getting out of the wave, and we need to continue vaccinating such that we won't experience another terrible wave if it is to come.
Dr. Memeza, there's a large difference in the amount of people that have taken the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine and the second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. So tell us something here. Are those figures of any relevance when we are tracking Zimbabwe's progress in terms of the vaccination program?
I think my take is we've been seeing that a lot of people have been getting their first dose, especially when the third wave started hitting. The discrepancy might be just there's still a delay or there's still a couple of weeks that needs for people to get their second dose. So that discrepancy might be there. And also it might be people who have been lost to follow-up or who haven't come to receive their second dose. And people are just being encouraged to get their second dose despite if they've delayed. So I think people should be encouraged to get their second dose in a timely manner, such that they become fully vaccinated against the coronavirus.
Now, last week we saw the vaccination program now being extended to youth who are 16 and above. As a medical expert, what is your take on that extension?
I think this was a decision that was made in particular due to how COVID was being transmitted at schools. We saw that schools were epicenters of transmission of the COVID-19 virus. And studies have shown that the vaccine is safe in that age group as well. And also getting vaccinated not only protects you, but also protects others. So I think the extension to that age group is to limit the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, and also protect those that are going to schools.
Now, do you think that this extension, 16 and above, can now be vaccinated? Do you think that this is going to help Zimbabwe in terms of achieving the 10 million goal, the herd immunity goal?
Well, statistically, you realize that Zimbabwe is mostly young population. So hitting that 10 million mark will also meet young population. And to be honest, vaccination will protect against you getting severe disease and also reduce spreading the virus. So although the young age is not a particular risk of getting severe disease because of their age, their physiology, will realize that this will just help in terms of curing the disease, not particularly severe disease because they are not severe.
Now, whilst in the discussion of this group that we're particularly focusing on today, the 16 and above age group, walk us through the process or the procedure behind getting them vaccinated. For example, what is the importance of something such as parental consent when it comes to vaccination of any young people who are 16 and above?
So I think, like all things in medicine, everything should have informed consent. The patient should get full explanation of what they are receiving and why they are receiving it, and they should consent to the particular procedure. So I think no difference between that and vaccination. People need to get full consent. Their minors, parents need to be informed that the children have, like what the minister announced, that we'll be extending the vaccination program that age group. So it's best practice in medicine to always have informed consent. No one is coerced to get the jab without them consenting to it.
Aiwa, tinotenda zvikuru saDr. Simemeze ngatimboziyai nyaya nerurimi rwamai as usual. Nyaya tinayo nhasi muchirongwa tiri kuzeya nyaya zvezvirongwa chirimo munyika chekubaya vechidiki vane makore 16 and above nhomba inodzivirira COVID-19. Asi tisati tasvika panyaya iyoyo ndachida kuti titange nekuzeya nyaya iripo yemusiyano uripo pakati pevanhu vati vabayiwa nhomba yekutanga nevanhu vati vabayiwa nhomba yechipiri. Senyanzvi munyaya dzeutano, nyaya iyi munoitambira sei?
Zvinhu zvatiri kukurudzira kuti vanhu vavaccinate, zvinova izvo zviri zvakanaka kuti nhomba dziri kuuya dzakati wandei kuti tikwanise kusvika manhamba atiri kutarisira. Uyezve nyaya yekuti pane 2 million then there's a million difference, nyaya yekuti vanhu pakaitika third wave yedu yanga chitei in the last couple of months, vanhu vakawanda vakabva vati hari zveshuwa regai tiite tivaccinate nenyaya yekuinformation yanga ichifamba, vanhu vachiudzwa kuti zvakakosha kuti vanhu vavaccinate. Saka difference yemanhamba inongova iyo pamwe yenyaya yekuti vanhu vachipin the process of the timeline of getting their second jab. Saka manumbers difference engedi. But also tinoziva kuti kune vamwe vanhu vanenge vasina kuzodzoka kuzotora nhomba yavo yechipiri vaccinated. Saka manumbers wawanda. Kune vamwe vasati vabayiwa vaite fully vaccinated. Zvinova izvo zvatiri kukurudzira kuti munhu wese kana wakambobayiwa udzoke wobayiwa nhomba yechipiri so that uite fully vaccinated.
Tochibata kanyaya iyoyo yatambokurukura nezvayo yekubayiwa kwevechidiki vane makore 16 and above. iyi nyaya yemunoitambira sei?
Well, zvanga tichitaura kuti from zvataiona I think takambokurukura nezvazvo kuti muzvikoro kuwanikwa muri izvo iri epicenter yekuti corona ive ichipararira. Saka izvi zvinhu zvatinoona kuti vari kuextenda kuti vana vari vezvikoro vabayiwe nepanhau yekuti kuzvikoro uku ndo kwanga kuchiwanikwa kuri maepicenter ekuspreada coronavirus. Saka nhomba inokubetsera iwewe kufighta disease. Painenge ichikubetsera kufighta disease inobetserawo futi kuti usaspreade chirwere maningi. Saka izvi zvinova izvo ndo zviri kuitwa kuitira kuti chirwere ichi chisanyanya kupararira maningi.
Aiwa, Dr. Simemeza regai timbokubatai pamuromo ipapo. Zulukandaba liyamuzwa uDr. Tinotenda Simemeza ngoyesilayo kuhlelo ingcwethi kwezempilakahle sihlaziya udaba lokumemetheka kwe-coronavirus elizweni. Sikhangela njalo uhlelo olukhona elizweni olujonge ukuhlaba abantu abasakhulayo iJackson elivikela i-coronavirus. Simbuzile ngempela uDr. Simemeza umbono wakhe ngalolu hlelo, yena uthi hayi ukwamukela ngenjabulo ngenxa yokuthi ubona ngani lolu hlelo luzasiza eleZimbabwe, ikakhulukazi njengoba sibona ukuthi kube kwaba lesikhathi lapho i-coronavirus ibimemetheka okumangalisayo ezikolo elizweni. Uthi hayi yena ubona ngani njengoba abantu abasakhulayo 16 and above sebeyenelisa ukuhlatshwa leli Jackson. Uthi hayi yena ubona ngani lokho kuzasiza. Uphinde njalo wathinta udaba lokuthi ukuze abasakhulayo labo bayenelisa ukuhlatshwa uqhakathekile okungakanani ukuthi bathola imvumo yomzali. Uthi hayi ngempela nxa ngumuntu okusakhulayo under the age of 18, uthi hayi uqhakathekile ngempela ukuthi uthole imvumo yomzali ukuthi uyenelisa ukuhlatshwa leli Jackson elivikela i-coronavirus. Now, Dr. Simemeza, before I come back to you, I want us to head over to a report produced by Voice of America, which shows how other nations are handling their COVID-19 vaccination program. And when we come back, we're going to discuss further with you. So, Muria Zimbabwe, let's head over to that report that we have that showcases how the vaccination program is being handled, for example, in Kenya.
At a bus terminal in Nairobi, Kenya, hundreds of people wait to get vaccinated. It's an exercise that has saved them long-distance travel to the designated vaccination centers. Walter Juma, a public bus conductor, is getting ready to receive his first COVID-19 jab. He says because of the demanding nature of his job, he could not find the time to go for vaccination at the health facilities.
The vaccination is now near my place of work and home. This has helped a lot. There are other people who cannot walk for long, the elderly, and some are sick.
Health officials say the number of people turning up for their vaccinations has doubled since more inoculation sites opened a month ago.
We've decided to come to the community because usually we give Monday to Friday in our public health facilities. But you find most people don't have time to come Monday to Friday. So we decided to come to the community so that we increase accessibility to the vaccine.
Kenya is receiving more vaccine doses from the US government and other nations, so the supply is much better than during the first phase of the vaccination program. With its new vaccination strategy, Kenyan authorities are hoping to vaccinate at least 10 million people by the end of the year.
We are now using about 800 centers, and we are going to gradually increase this to 3,000 centers by December. Increasing them means you are reaching people. You are opening vaccination center closer to where people are.
So far, 2.5 million people have received the first dose of the vaccine in Kenya. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Nairobi.
Well, Muria Zimbabwe, you're hearing there what's happening in Kenya. With regards to the COVID-19 vaccination program, that's their COVID-19 vaccination response plan. Dr. Simemeza, back to you. As you just witnessed there, that was a VOA report that showcases what's happening in Kenya. One major takeaway from that is that they're taking the vaccine to the people. Now, when we track back to Zimbabwe, one of the biggest complaints that people have had, especially in the rural areas, is that the places whereby they can get the COVID-19 vaccine seem to be a little far. Now, with that in mind, what exactly do you think of the vaccination program in Kenya? And of course, tell us what you think as Zimbabwe we should take away from this.
I think I commend that program, and I really think it's a really incredible strategy. So I think just to say this before I talk about that, vaccine will aid in the health against coronavirus, but we are not neglecting all those other procedures that we talked about: social distancing, sanitizing, and wearing of masks. So all these things work together in terms of preventing the rampant spread of COVID-19. So even though as people are getting vaccinated, we should always continue talking about the same principles that we've been talking about all this time. To say vaccination is not removing these principles, but we should continue adhering to it up until we achieve herd immunity and stop the infective process. So it's actually good that medical professionals in Kenya, actually going into the community and vaccinating people there, because this is where the people are, and also it will stop people from gathering and also having long queues and spending long hours waiting to get the jab, which can also promote the spread of the disease. So it's actually getting into the community and where people are and actually getting them vaccinated there. We've seen the same program being done for children, whereby nurses go into the community vaccinating children even in Zim. So I think something that is possible and something that can be easy.
Now, of course, reverting back to the distances challenge I just highlighted, do you think such a program would help Zimbabwe?
Will be extremely helpful, especially in our rural areas where some of the health centers are pretty far from the people. So it would be good that vaccination just goes to the people, where the people stay, and also as they, if you go to where the people are, they will encourage each other to get vaccinated, and everyone will get vaccinated. So it would be good to get to those communities.
Aiwatakunza zvakanaka, Dr. Simemeza, siyabonga ngempela. Nguva ndiyoyadikana na time is quickly running out. So before we wrap up, could you give us your last sentiments?
Yeah, I would always say those who are at risk should get vaccinated, and there should always be a priority because they are the ones who might suffer from severe disease. But also, this going to the younger population is to also curb the spread of the disease, because these young people are in constant contact with the elderly people and those that are teaching them, the teachers, the parents, the grandparents, and so forth. So it's not a totally bad idea for the young population to be vaccinated, although all priority should always be given to those who are most vulnerable. But this will actually help in terms of curbing the spread of the disease to those who are vulnerable. So it's good that people get vaccinated so as to protect those that are vulnerable to the condition and curb the spread of the disease. So it's not totally a bad idea, but also, as always, as we have talked about multiple times, priorities to those that are mostly at risk. They need to get the jab as soon as possible before they contract the virus.
Before you go, Dr. Simemeza, I want to continue talking on that one. I know I said that was your last sentiment, but I want to touch a little more in terms of the skepticism around the vaccine. Now, I'm still curious in terms of that, to go back to that 16 age group that's going to be receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. Seeing as though you highlighted that parental consent is very important, what happens in circumstances whereby, for example, a parent umzali says, wangu mwana abayiwe ijekiseni iri, owami umntana ngeke ahlatshwe leli jekiseni, my child would not receive this COVID-19 vaccine. What words would you have for such a parent?
I'd say to everyone, doubt is a natural thing, whereby you have seek answers, and we should always be looking for answers and get the facts right and get an informed decision when these things happen. So taona kuti vaccine is safe for vana 14 to 17 years old, and it has been tried. So I would encourage, vaccine technology has been there for hundreds of years, and people need not to worry much. But also, it's good that people get their facts right, especially from my sources are really honest and truthful. But I would encourage people not to worry much, as it was the first step when administering a drug or a vaccine is to make sure it is safe, and to make sure that it's efficacious, that it works. So as long as the vaccine is considered safe and it has been approved by WHO, I would say it's fine. We should go ahead. They should get their research from sites that are truthful and honest.
Aiwa, takunzai zvakanaka Dr. Simemeza. Ndanchikumbira kuti mukande mashoko enyu ekupedzisira kune vateereri tochipete edu hurukuro yedu.
So I would encourage people to follow all those steps that we've been following and make sure those who are most vulnerable murivenyu vawane nhomba nekuchimbidza kuitira kuti vaite fully vaccinated before taexperiensa imwe wave kukwanisa tiparadza.
Well, Zulukandaba sithanda ukubonga uDr. Tinotenda Simemeza ngokungena kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo ubechasisa ngonengi ngempela ngohlelo lokuhlaba abantu abasakhulayo 16 and above ijekiseni elivikela i-coronavirus. If you're tuning in right now, Muri Zimbabwe, you're tuned into Live Talk at The Connection. My name is Mike Hove. Unfortunately, you're not able to join in live as per usual, Muri Zimbabwe, via telephone. However, we're still available on our Facebook pages as we speak. VOA Ndebele, VOA Studio 7, kanye la ku VOA Shona. So lingakhohlwa Zulukandaba ukubhala imibono yenu msakanganwe kunyora maondro yenu. Do not forget to write your comments in the comment section so that we get to see your feedback. Muri Zimbabwe, kune munhu wese ari kupinda muchirongwa chinotenda zvikurusa makateerera chirongwa chedu cheve chidiki uhlelo The Connection. Mwineni Mike Hove. Shout out there to Mr. Tirarira Swa Inindin Darira Just Signal. They're partnering up with Roots Africa for that amazing message there. We are showing empelo ukuthi gezani izandla geza imawoko kwe 20 seconds kana kudarika mushandisa sipo msakangane zvekare kusamenyana lingakhohli ukuthi kumele uqhakathekile ngempela ukuthi lingamenyani Zulukandaba respect social distancing. And now, earlier on, namhlanje kuhlelo I mentioned ukuthi we're also going to be focusing on the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence campaign, which is commemorated annually from the 25th of November through to the 10th of December. Now, once again, for those that do not know, Umkankasolo, this program, this campaign focuses predominantly on ending gender-based violence, discusses women empowerment, and of course, the respect of human rights across the globe, Zimbabwe included. So the theme of this year's commemorations, Muri Zimbabwe, is Orange the World, End Violence Against Women Now. So we're going to be delving into that. To hear more, I reached out to several women's rights advocates, and I must highlight it that throughout the entire campaign, we're going to be focusing on that. Speaking to different youth about the campaign and, of course, human rights. So I asked a couple of women's rights advocates to send me voice notes talking more about the importance of the day, the importance of women empowerment, and of course, how we can find ourselves in a position whereby women's rights are respected a lot more, and of course, bringing an end to gender-based violence in Zimbabwe, to be particular. So the first person I reached out to, Ngube Tutsonga, once again, she's a women's rights advocate. Let's hear Uti Ngube, what did she have to say about Umkankasulo with 16 days of activism against gender-based violence?
Ngiyabonga kakhulu Mike ngethuba ongiphe lona. Siyazi sonke ukuthi sibhekane lobubi bodlame kubomama lamantombazane umhlaba wonke jikelele. Amalanga ali-16 lawa abekwa yi-United Nations ukuthi kukhankaswe ngodlame lokuhlukunyezwa kwabantu besifazane lamantombazane. Amalanga lawa aqakathekile kakhulu ngoba apha umhlaba wonke ithuba lokuthi bahlolisise njalo bakhulume ngokuhlukunyezwa kwabesifazane langembangela zakhona. Inhlanganiso eziningi emhlabeni zithatha leli thuba ukuba zikhankase kakhulu ngobubi bokuhlukumeza abesifazane lokukhuza obaba ukuthi bangakwenzi lokuchazela uzulu umonakalo owenzakalayo ebantwaneni abakhula bebona udlame ekhaya. I-gender-based violence iyaphambanisa abantwana abakhulela emakhaya ahlala elodlame bebona umama echaywa ethethiswa ekhala. Abantwana baba le-psychological trauma. Okubi kwakhona ukuthi abantu abamnyama kabakholelwa ku-counseling, kodwa abantwana abakhula bebona udlame bayaphambaniseka engqondweni zabo, bafuna usizo. Lababa le-low self-esteem abenzi kuhle ezikolo, abadlali kuhle labanye abantwana, baba lenzondo abakhona ukuyikhuphela kwabanye abantwana ngokubachaya. Kwenzakala ukuthi kube yi-vicious cycle yokuthi labo abakhule bebona udlame bagcina belodlame emulini zabo. Uma bengamantombazane bafuna ukuqinisela emendweni olodlame ngoba yikho nje abakwaziyo abakhule bekubona.
Well, Zuluganda was Tandubonga Ubetu for those amazing words that she gave us. Kuluma Ogunengi, Achitsana Nguraka, Maundra Kineja Kukosha, Kwechirongwache, 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. But we also reached out to another young lady, Ulois Kapondo, who sent me her thoughts. But this time, Ulois doesn't just focus on Umkankasolo with 16 days of activism. She also focuses on the importance of education and women empowerment when it comes to ending gender-based violence. Let's hear what Lois had to say.
I wouldn't say women empowerment lowers gender-based violence, mainly because violence can happen even to those women who are economically empowered. Yes, it is known that gender-based violence in most cases is driven by poverty, but it does not also mean that gender-based violence does not happen to women who are considered economically empowered. The advantage that an economically empowered woman might have is that they have an option of leaving in the face that they encounter or they face gender-based violence. They have options of leaving. Not that they always leave. There is need for empowerment beyond economic empowerment to offer emotional support to women to know that they can actually walk away from a violent situation. Because we've seen some women that are economically stable that can look after themselves staying in abusive relationships, mainly because extended families may encourage them to stay and to say, think of your children, you can't leave your children, forgive and forget. And life goes on.
Well, as Zulugandaba, you are hearing there from Ulois Kapondo, speaking her thoughts on the importance of education and women empowerment when it comes to ending gender-based violence. But now, Zimbabwe is not the only country that is currently fighting this pandemic of gender-based violence. This issue is an issue across the whole globe. Let's head over to a VOA report that was recently done to hear more about how women in Kenya are working hard towards bringing an end to gender-based violence. Let's hear what they had to say.
Alice Achieng says she was raped at 13. Then she married as a teenager and was beaten by her husband almost daily. She says no one would help and he wouldn't change, so she left. The mother of 3 says she understands why so many suffer in silence.
I was also where these many women are. I had that fear. I also felt like if I came out and admitted that I was raped, people would laugh at me, or they would say I'm lying. So most people are afraid of that.
UN figures show about 39% of women in Kenya report experiencing some form of violence at the hands of sexual intimate partners. Now, Alice and other survivors in the slums of Kibera are taking action against gender-based violence. After working for 2 years to highlight the problem, the group launched the first center in Kibera for victims of abuse with the help of donations. The site includes a safe house and resource facility for women and girls. Editor Adhiambo, a rape survivor from Kibera, is the director.
Apart from a safe house, our office will act as a safe center where women can come and share their stories, where women can come and get our service. Our main service today that we are having is education, empowerment. We want to empower women on their rights. If you understand your right today and you practice tomorrow your rights, then you are liberated.
Wangeshi Washira is the director of the Center for Rights Education and Awareness. She says gender-based violence is prevalent in Kenya's informal settlements.
As an organization, we have our Kibera office here in Nairobi. This year alone, 2018, we have 651 reported cases of gender-based violence, and this is only for one organization. The last just concluded national exams. We've seen a very big numbers of girls who are violated. With one county where we're working, for example, in Kilifi, we had 13,000 girls who have been violated in teenage pregnancy, and that is only one county.
She says intimate partner violence makes victims more vulnerable to HIV infection and other serious problems.
We have seen the magnitude of violence happening to women being more, and we can describe it in terms of sexual violence. We can also be able to define it in terms of emotional violence. There is also a component of economic violence.
Survivors say they hope the center sends a clear message about the true cause of gender-based violence to victims and society. Raya Lombor for VOA News, Nairobi.
Well, Maria Zimbabwe, you're seeing there okwenzakalayo kwele Kenya. Abantu besifazana ngempela bayasho ngempela ukuthi kwanele when it comes to gender-based violence. They're fighting very hard to bring an end to gender-based violence. But now another thing that we'll see was that I took away from this report that we just played of about the way that women in Kenya are fighting gender-based violence is something that was highlighted by Lois earlier on, which is the power of education and, of course, the power of women empowerment when it comes to bringing an end towards gender-based violence, which leads to the next conversation that we're going to be having, Maria Zimbabwe. I reached out to Anoziwa Marindire of the African Union and Afri, who is a musician who is working on a program led by the African Union titled Africa Educates Her. Now, this program focuses on empowering the girl child and ensuring that, for example, these disruptions that came with the COVID-19 pandemic that have led to an increase in gender-based violence, that have led to an increase in the violation of the rights of the girl child, and that have led to an increase in early child marriages across the whole globe, come to an end. So let's head over to that conversation that I had with Anoziwa Marindire and Afri, who tell us more about this program and, of course, how this program is going to be helping African girl child.
So as you know, and I think from the conversations that you were having with the previous speakers that you had on, education is definitely one of the issues that I think has come up and has been hit hardest by COVID-19.
Right.
And within education, there had been pre-existing inequalities that were in existence prior that have been worsened due to COVID-19, in particular girls and women's education. As you know that a lot of schools, I think, across the continent shut down, including Zimbabwe. And even when they are reopening, there are constant disruptions also, where you find that once you reopen, maybe for 2 months, you end up shutting down because the cases have also gone up in the schools, and that has a huge impact on girls' retention and return to school post the COVID-19 pandemic itself. From evidence that we are receiving from the AU member states, you can see that there is an increase in issues of gender-based violence, in issues of pregnancies, and these things, all of these things combined, will definitely affect the return of school for millions of girls across the continent. Within the Zimbabwean context, there was a report that came out, I think, around January or February, that showed that over 1,000 girls had fallen pregnant within a period of a month.
Right.
And so when we started receiving this evidence, we decided, so what can we do as the center that's responsible for girls and women's education? And hence the Africa Educator campaign came to be, which is a rallying call to our AU member states to prioritize education, particularly girls and women's education within the continent. We know that most budgets that were earmarked for other areas, including education, had to be put on the side in favor of health, so that our governments could deal with the pandemic. But also within that mindset or framework, we are saying we still need to prioritize education within that context. So this is a rallying call to all our AU member states to say prioritize girls' education as you're making your planning and COVID responses. And we've been engaging with AU member states in that regard. But it was also it is also an awareness raising campaign for our young people within the continent, for them to take action that ensures that girls continue learning during COVID and that they return to school post-COVID within their local communities. I think girls' education and education as a whole is not just a government issue, it's also a community issue, a family issue, and even an individual issue. So that's the Africa Educator campaign for you.
I know, Ziva, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us in the program. Now, let's continue delving into this program itself, the campaign. Tell us a little more about it. I know the AU, for example, has been producing music surrounding the campaign. Tell us a little more about that.
So as part of the campaign, which we launched, by the way, last year in September on the 20th, we did a call to young African people to submit creative content showcasing the learning experiences of girls during the COVID school lockdowns. And we received an amazing number of pieces in terms of the creative pieces. And we chose a song that was submitted by Afri from Uganda, whom you will be talking to soon. And we also had another artist from Nigeria who had submitted their content. And what we did was we brought the two together, plus Smarty, who's the UNICEF Global Will Ambassador for Burkina Faso, to create a theme song for the Africa Educator campaign, speaking to the issue of girls and women's education, particularly in the context of COVID and ensuring that girls return to school. And then during the 1-year anniversary, we launched the official video or music video for that song.
All right, well, Muria Zimbabwe, speaking of this video, let us briefly showcase the video that Anozi was talking about. And when we come back, we're going to head over to a quick chat with Afri, one of the artists who was responsible for producing the video, the music song that we are referring to, that is part of this campaign that focuses on helping young girls when it comes to education.
Afri, Ife, Smarty.
They say close your mouth about the things going on in your area, girl. They say you're too weak, too vain to care.
All right, Muria Zimbabwe, you're hearing there. That is a snippet of the song I Am an African Girl, produced by Afri, Ife, and Smarty. That is the official song focusing on the hashtag Africa Educates Her campaign. Now, let us bring in Afri, who is one of the musicians who are responsible for this song and is part of this campaign. Afri, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
We're just stoked to have you on the show, Afri. Now, let us delve into it. Let's talk a little more about you as an artist and this program itself. What motivated you as an artist to want to be part of this initiative?
For me, it's always been my vision to tell the truth of the African girl, to tell the truth of the Ugandan girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that stems from my experience as a Ugandan girl. I have grown up here. I know what it means to speak and have your voice not fully listened to. And so the song it just flowed out of my heart, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so it ended up resonating with so many girls globally. And so I'm really grateful for that. That's how I ended up being part of such a cause.
Afri, speak to us a little more about the motivation behind the song. We briefly heard you there touching on COVID-19, but I'm also curious about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on young girls in Uganda. Tell us a little more about that.
Ugandans have been out of school for almost 2 years, but in Karamoja, it's different because they have tradition that affects the girls, female genital mutilation and early marriage. It's part of their tradition. And so the girls have been out of school and the cases of early marriage and female genital mutilation have greatly increased because these 14-year-old and 15-year-old girls are ready for marriage according to tradition. And so definitely it's like, will they ever get back into school? That's the question everybody's asking. It becomes worse because they're out of school during this period of time. And if they get pregnant, then the cases of them, the chances of them getting back into school are even much more slim.
Right. Now, Afri, as we wrap up our conversation here with you, I want to touch on what you're looking to achieve. So tell us a little more about that. As a member, as an artist who was part of this amazing campaign, what are you hoping to achieve?
To be honest, as an artist, what I really want is awareness. And the good thing with art is it creates awareness with entertainment, so it makes it much more palatable to anybody who's listening, to a mass audience too, especially for the young people who we want to reach. So they feel more engaged and they want to be part of such a campaign. And so we want awareness.
All right, Muria Zimbabwe, you're hearing there from Afri, one of the artists who's part of the Africa Educates Her campaign. Afri, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us on the show. Now, Muria Zimbabwe, once again, let's head over to another snippet of the song, I Am an African Girl, produced by Afi, Ife, and Smarty. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up our conversation with Anoziva.
But who is this African girl? Yeah. Who is this Ugandan girl? Tell me, who is this Nigerian girl? Yeah.
I am an African girl. Well, obviously, I'm not a girl, but you know what I mean. The song I Am an African Girl, produced by Afri, Ife, and Smarty, the official song for the Africa Educates Her campaign. Afri, Muria Zimbabwe, is actually currently running for an Afrima Award, which is the African Music Awards. So for those that are supportive, for those that feel as though what she's doing is really amazing, go ahead and support her, show her some love, go vote for her. For more information, visit her social media pages at African Girl. That is AFRIE CANGAL. Now, Muria Zimbabwe, let's head back to Anoziva. Anoziva, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Now, in closing, obviously, there's a lot of people who have paid attention to this interview, and they're really curious in terms of where they can find more information, especially the young girl who is hoping to be a beneficiary of this program. Please go ahead and let them know.
Okay, so you can link into the campaign by going to www.ciefa, which is CIEFFA.org/Africa Educates Her, which is one word. When you go there, there are a couple of forms that young people can fill. You can also check out the song on YouTube. If you go to African Union CIEFA on YouTube, you'll see the song. And then also, in case you want to directly engage with the African Union International Center for Girls and Women's Education, maybe you have a story that you want to share, or you want to get some materials in terms of advocating for girls and women's education within your own community or country, you can reach us. You can reach us via email. The email address is au-ciefa@africa-union.org.
All right, well, Muria Zimbabwe, shout out to Anuziwa Marindire, and of course, are free for taking time out to be with us. Pano pachirongwa chedu chevechidiki. Well, Muria Zimbabwe sesiyafika emaphethelweni ohlelo lethu labasakhulayo tave kutosvika page go nekupeta chirongwa chedu chevechidiki. Now, as we wrap up, I want to focus on the works of a young artist in Zimbabwe who is doing amazing things. She's using her work as an artist to not only entertain Zimbabweans, but also educate people on the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's head over to her work, and of course, you'll get to hear more about who she is, what she does, and how she's using her work to educate Zimbabweans on the COVID-19 pandemic.
It might sound like a lot of money, but for many Zimbabweans, the country's old multi-million and multi-billion-dollar banknotes are a reminder of an economy brought to collapse. A time when they lost everything. Prudence Chimutua, however, has found artistic value in Zimbabwe's hyperinflationary legacy. At her studio in the capital Harare, she incorporates the discarded cash into portraits.
A lot of people, when they see these the old banknotes, their reaction most of the time is most people get angry. You know, because a lot of people lost a lot of things, and some other people even lost lots of money, because you could just wake up and boom, the $1 million you had in your account is no longer functional.
Over a decade ago, rampant money printing under the late Robert Mugabe obliterated the currency. Hyperinflation resulted in the release of a 100 trillion Zimbabwean dollar note. Savings were wiped out and millions of people pushed into poverty. Zim dollars were abandoned in 2009, and most ended up in the trash. But Chimutua deploys them in her portrayals of the daily lives of women. $50 billion notes become a calabash, $500 million a woman's face mask. The artist hopes her work will help people recover from the trauma of that time.
So for me, I'm trying to bring that element whereby I'm like sort of celebrating for people to see the beauty of these old banknotes. So when someone looks at this artwork, they go like, wow. And then they forget that the pain this thing has caused them.
Chimutua's portraits are on display at the National Gallery of Zimbabwe. It's running a month-long exhibition in a bid to raise awareness amongst the public on issues surrounding the so-called new normal, such as masks and social distancing.
All right, Muria Zimbabwe, you're hearing the umsebenzi Prudence Lapa, who's using her work to not only entertain Zimbabweans, but to also educate Zimbabweans on the COVID-19 pandemic. Ai kwana leko lana mthakazo muhle Zimbabwe muhle tinoda regainditore mukana wemukutenda munhu wese angainesu pano pachirongwa chedu chevechidiki lapha kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo. Thank you so much to all my guests who took time out to be with us. Muria Zimbabwe nasi mchirongwa chedu. We're touching on the vaccination program in Zimbabwe that has extended to the 16 and above age group in Zimbabwe. So all Zimbabwean youth age 16 and above can now be vaccinated. Tabata Rekare nyaya chirongwa che 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Remember, Muria Zimbabwe, we're going to be focusing on this campaign throughout up until the 10th of December. So if you're looking to give us your input, send us your WhatsApp voice notes on +1 202 465 0318 at Big Mike 3 on Twitter and Instagram. If you're looking to catch up with me, Muria Zimbabwe, that's how you can best reach out to me.